They told me the apartment was cheap because the previous tenant left without taking his things. They didn't tell me he left because the walls started answering him back. If you're watching this from a dark room, check your reflection in the screen. Does it move at the exact same time you do? Because mine has started to lag. Moving to the suburbs of North Carolina felt like a fresh start. I'm a freelance editor. I spend 10 hours a day staring at pixels. I like logic. I like things that make sense. The complex was called Silver Oaks. It was one of those planned communities where every house looks identical. Beige walls, white fences, perfectly manicured lawns. It looked like a rendering. The first week was silent. Too silent. You know that feeling when you're in a library and you're afraid to breathe too loud. That was Silver Oaks. I'd walk to my car at 6 a.m. and the air felt thick, like it hadn't been cycled in years. There were no birds, no squirrels, just the hum of the AC units. I met my neighbor, Mr. Henderson, on Tuesday. He was standing on his porch, staring at a spot on his lawn. He didn't blink for the 3 minutes it took me to unload my groceries. When I waved, he didn't wave back with his hand. He just tilted his head at a 45-degree angle and smiled. Not a human smile, a muscle memory smile. "New here?" he asked. His voice sounded like it was coming from a speaker 5 feet behind him. "Yeah, just moved in," I replied, feeling a cold sweat prickle my neck. "Follow the rules," he said. "The HOA is very strict about the 3 a.m. window." I laughed, thinking it was a joke about garbage pickup. He didn't laugh. He just walked backward into his house, closing the door without looking away from me. 3 days later, I was editing a horror short for a client. It was to 58 a.m. I was exhausted. I reached for my coffee mug, but my hand passed through it. Not like a ghost, more like a clipping error in a video game. I saw the pixels of my own skin jitter. I blinked, and the mug was back, solid. I shook it off as sleep deprivation. But then, I heard it. Clip, clip, clip. The sound of someone walking on a hardwood floor. But I have carpet. I froze. The sound wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside my headphones. Even though I wasn't playing any audio, I took them off. The silence was deafening. I put them back on. Clip, clip, stop. A voice whispered in my left ear. It was my own voice. It said, "Don't look at the window. He's checking the render." My heart hammered against my ribs. I slowly turned my head toward the window. Outside, the street lights were flickering in a rhythmic pattern. Long, short, long. Morse code. No. It was like a loading bar. The trees at the edge of the yard were swaying, but they weren't moving with the wind. They were looping. The exact same branch movement every few seconds. I grabbed my phone to record it. As soon as the camera app opened, the screen turned bright red. A system notification appeared, one I'd never seen on an iPhone. Critical error. High latency in zone 4. Please remain still for optimization. I couldn't stay in that room. I ran to the kitchen, but as I passed the hall mirror, I saw it. My reflection was still sitting at the desk, looking at the computer. It hadn't realized I'd moved yet. I watched my reflection slowly stand up, look at the mirror, and lock eyes with the real me. The reflection didn't look scared. It looked annoyed. I ran to the basement. The previous tenant, a guy named Elias, had left a stack of old VHS tapes and a notebook. I opened the notebook. It was filled with drawings of the neighborhood, but from a top-down perspective, like a map for a developer. One page had a list of rules for the render. If the sky turns purple for more than 10 seconds, close your eyes. It's a texture update. Do not speak to the NPCS neighbors after midnight. They are on low power mode. If you see a seamless edge at the end of the street, do not cross it. The HOA is watching the frame rate. Do not move too fast. Underneath, in messy handwriting, Elias had written, "I found the source code. It's behind the drywall in the utility room. They forgot to patch the hole." I grabbed a hammer. I didn't care about the security deposit anymore. I smashed the drywall in the utility room. Behind the insulation, there wasn't brick or wood. There was a screen, a massive, glowing OLED-like surface that spanned the entire foundation of the house. On the screen, lines of code were scrolling so fast they blurred, but I recognized the names. Subject_user_7721. Pulse rate 110. Panic level, high. Action. Deploy Henderson to neutralize curiosity. Suddenly, I heard the front door open, backwards. I heard the heavy, rhythmic thud of Mr. Henderson's boots. He wasn't running. He was teleporting in short bursts. I'd hear a footstep in the kitchen. Then a second later, he was at the top of the basement stairs. I looked at the screen again. I saw a command prompt. CMD, delete _subject_7721. I grabbed my laptop, plugged it into the interface. Don't ask me how. There was a port that fit perfectly, and I did the only Thing a video editor knows how to do. I overloaded the cache. I dragged every heavy file I had, 4K raw footage, 8K textures, and dumped them into the neighborhood system. The world began to scream. The walls of the basement started tearing, showing a void of pure white light behind the wallpaper. Mr. Henderson appeared at the bottom of the stairs, but his face was gone. It was just a smooth, beige surface with the word texture _ missing written in glowing green letters across his forehead. He lunged at me. His movements were jerky, skipping frames. I dodged, and he hit the wall, his arm getting stuck inside the concrete as if it were liquid. I ran for the stairs, bursting out into the street. The sky was no longer black. It was a grid of blue and gray squares. The neighbors were all standing on their lawns, perfectly still, T-posing. Their eyes were wide, tracking me as I sprinted toward the seamless edge Elias had mentioned. The air started to pixelate. My hands were turning into blocks of low-res color. I could feel my memories becoming compressed. I was forgetting my mother's name. I was forgetting why I was running. I reached the end of the cul-de-sac, where the road should have continued into the next town. There was just nothing. A sharp line where the asphalt ended and a void of white static began. I looked back. Mr. Henderson, the thing wearing his skin, was gliding toward me, his jaw unhinging to reveal a row of cooling fans. "You're out of memory," he hissed. I jumped. I woke up in a hospital bed. They told me I'd been found, unconscious in a vacant lot where a planned community was supposed to be built, but the project had been canceled due to lack of funding. They said I had severe dehydration and hallucinations. I almost believed them, until I got home. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, trying to return to a normal life. I opened my camera app to take a selfie, just to see if I looked real again. The camera focused on my face. It looked fine, but then a little yellow box appeared in the background, over the empty corner of my room. The face detection box. It wasn't just detecting a face. It was displaying a name and a small tag above the box. User, Elias, previous tenant. And then my phone's battery jumped from 10% to 100% in 1 second. A notification popped up. Update complete. Zone for optimized. Welcome home. I looked at my hand. I tried to make a fist. Lag. 1 second delay. I'm not in a hospital. I'm not in a vacant lot. I'm just in a better rendered version of the basement. And if you're hearing this, that means you've been invited to the same server. Check your clock. Is it 3 a.m.? Don't blink. The frame rate is dropping. If you've ever experienced a glitch in the Matrix, tell me your story in the comments. I'll be reading them. If the HOA lets me, like and subscribe, or you might find yourself in the next update. Stay safe, and remember, if you see a neighbor who doesn't blink, run the other way. I stared at my hand for what felt like hours. 5 seconds to close my fingers into a fist. 6 seconds to open them. My brain sent the signal, but the server was struggling to process the physics of my own body. I looked back at the phone. The yellow box over the empty corner was still there. User, Elias. Elias, I whispered. My voice came out as a series of distorted, electronic chirps before snapping into clarity. Are you here? The air in the corner began to shimmer. It looked like heat rising from asphalt, but instead of heat, it was a distortion of light, a cluster of jagged polygons trying to form a human shape. It was Elias, or at least, the low-resolution assets that were left of him. You looked like a character from a PlayStation 1 game. Sharp edges and blurred textures. They didn't delete me. The figure spoke. His voice was a layered chorus of 1,000 different people, flickering like a radio dial being turned to fast. They just moved me to the recycle bin. You're in the bin too, kid. We all are. What do you mean? I asked, my heart, which I could no longer feel beating, racing with a terror I couldn't name. The update didn't optimize Zone 4. Elias's jagged mouth moved out of sync with his words. It replaced it. Everything outside that door? It's not your world anymore. It's a compressed backup. They're saving bandwidth. They're preparing for a global merge. When the servers combine, the unique files get deleted. You me. Your memories were redundant data. I walked to the window. I pulled back the curtain. Outside, the street was gone. It wasn't a void anymore. It was worse. It was a mirror image of my own living room, stretching out into infinity. A hallway of the same house, repeating over and over, filled with versions of me staring out of their own windows. Thousands of me, all of us looking at each other, all of us lagging. I realized then that the only way to survive wasn't to run. You can't run from a hard drive. You have to become a virus. I sat back down at my computer. It was the only thing that felt solid, probably because it was a primary asset in the simulation. I opened my editing software, but I didn't import video. I imported the system root file I had copied from the basement interface. The code was beautiful and terrifying. It wasn't math. It was biology written in light. I began to delete. I didn't delete the world. I deleted myself from the physics engine. If the world couldn't track my location, it couldn't delete me. The screen turned a blinding white. My room began to dissolve into floating strings of binary. I felt a sensation of falling not through air, but through layers of reality. I passed through Zone 3, the city, which looked like a wireframe sketch. I passed through Zone 2, the ocean, which was just a flat, blue plane with no depth. And then, I saw the admin. It wasn't a god. It wasn't an alien. The admin isn't watching me anymore. It's watching the person behind the screen. Why do you think you're so drawn to these stories? Why does the brain rot, the uncanny valley, and the liminal space feel so familiar to you? It's not because it's creepy, it's because your subroutine is recognizing the environment. You're not watching a video on YouTube. You're watching a status report. Right now, your device is heating up. That's not the battery. That's the system trying to render your reaction in real time. Look at the time on your screen. Did a minute just skip? Did you hear a sound in the other room that you chose to ignore? Elias told me one last thing before he was wiped. He said, the only way to know if you're real is to do something unpredictable. Break the script. So, I'm going to end this video differently. I'm not going to say, thanks for watching. I'm going to give the system a reason to crash.